Every time you take a step, lift a book, or even blink your eyes, hundreds of muscles are working together in perfect coordination. The human body has over 600 muscles, and without them, not a single movement would be possible. I am Miss Kathy, and today we are going to explore the muscular system, covering its structure, types, and functions. Understanding this system is essential in fields like biomedical engineering, rehabilitation, and biomechanics. Let us get started and uncover how muscles power everything we do. Muscular tissue is fundamentally defined by one key property, the ability to contract, meaning it can shorten in length when stimulated, generating force and producing movement. Think of it like a biological motor. Just as an electric motor converts electrical energy into mechanical motion, muscle tissue converts chemical energy into physical movement. Beyond locomotion, muscles maintain posture, drive breathing, generate body heat, and even power the heartbeat. We classify muscle into 3 types: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac, each specialized for different roles in the body. There are 3 types of muscle tissue in the human body, and we are starting with skeletal muscle. These are attached to your bones and are responsible for body movement. Their cells are long and cylindrical, and uniquely, they contain multiple nuclei pushed to the outer edges of the fiber. Under a microscope, they show a striped pattern of alternating dark and light bands. Think of them like a striped rubber band stretched between 2 anchor points. Importantly, skeletal muscles are under voluntary control, meaning you consciously decide when to move them. Now let us look at the first of 3 muscle types, cardiac muscle. This is the muscle that makes up the heart wall, and it is truly unique. The fibers are long and branched, and each cell has a single nucleus positioned at the center. What makes cardiac muscle special is its intercalated discs. These are specialized junctions connecting adjacent cells, allowing electrical signals to pass rapidly from cell to cell, coordinating that rhythmic pumping action. Importantly, cardiac muscle operates under involuntary control, meaning it contracts continuously without you consciously thinking about it. Let's talk about smooth muscle, the first of the 3 muscle types you need to know. Smooth muscle is involuntary, meaning you have absolutely no conscious control over it. Your digestive tract keeps moving food along without you thinking about it at all. These muscles line hollow organs, blood vessels, and glands. Their cells are small and spindle-shaped, each containing a single centrally located nucleus. And importantly, they appear non-striated, meaning no visible banding pattern under a microscope. Let us go deeper into the structure of a single skeletal muscle fiber, because understanding this level of detail is key to understanding how muscles actually contract. Each muscle fiber is essentially one cell. Its cell membrane is called the sarcolemma, and its cytoplasm is called the sarcoplasm. Inside the sarcoplasm, you find myofibrils, long, thread-like structures made of 2 types of protein filaments: actin, which is thin, and myosin, which is thick. Think of a myofibril like a zipper. The repeating, interlocking units are called sarcomeres, and each sarcomere runs from one Z-disc to the next. The Z-discs anchor the actin filaments, while the M-line holds the myosin filaments in the center. Now, the sarcoplasmic reticulum is a specialized organelle that stores calcium ions, and calcium is the trigger that initiates contraction. Because actin and myosin are arranged in a very specific overlapping pattern, they create visible bands under a microscope. The I band appears light because it contains only actin. The A band appears dark because both actin and myosin overlap there. The H zone in the middle contains only myosin. This precise arrangement is not random. It is exactly what allows controlled, powerful movement to occur. Let's walk through the hierarchical organization of skeletal muscle, from the largest structure down to the molecular level. We start with the whole muscle, which is made up of bundled units called fascicles or fasciculi. Each fascicle contains individual muscle fibers, which are actually single cells. The outer membrane of this cell is called the sarcolemma, and it has deep inward extensions called T-tubules that carry electrical signals deep into the cell. The cytoplasm here is called sarcoplasm, and running through it is the sarcoplasmic reticulum, a network that stores calcium ions critical for triggering contraction. Inside each fiber are thread-like structures called myofibrils, and each myofibril is divided into repeating contractual units called sarcomeres. Think of sarcomeres like the individual links in a chain. Each one shortens slightly, and together they produce the full movement of your muscle. Finally, at the protein level, the two major players are actin, the thinner filament, and myosin, the thicker filament. These two proteins physically interact to generate the pulling force that contracts the muscle. Understanding this hierarchy is essential because every contraction event begins at this molecular level and scales all the way up to whole muscle movement. Inside each muscle fiber, we find the myofibril, and this is where the actual contraction machinery lives. Myofibrils are built from two types of protein filaments, thin actin filaments and thick myosin filaments. The thin filament is actually a team of three proteins, actin as the main structural component, and troponin and tropomyosin playing regulatory roles, essentially acting as the on-off switch for contraction. The thick filament is simpler. It is purely myosin. Think of it like a rope and hook system, where myosin hooks grab onto actin ropes to generate movement. Understanding this protein-level composition is fundamental because every contraction event you will study traces back to the interaction between these specific molecules. Let's look at how actin and myosin are physically arranged inside a muscle fiber. The dark band, called the A band, contains thick myosin filaments overlapping with thin actin filaments. This overlap is what gives it that darker appearance under a microscope. The light band, or I band, contains only thin actin filaments, making it appear lighter. The Z disc marks the boundary of each sarcomere, anchoring the actin filaments in place. This repeating arrangement is the structural foundation of muscle contraction. The muscular system does not work in isolation. Every skeletal muscle is supplied by at least one nerve, and that nerve carries both motor and sensory signals. Motor neurons trigger muscle contraction by releasing acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction, while sensory neurons relay feedback about tension and stretch. Think of it like a two-way radio system. Commands go in, status updates come back. Without proper nerve supply, a muscle becomes paralyzed and eventually wastes away, which is clinically significant in conditions like nerve damage or polio. Now let us look at how muscle fibers are actually stimulated to contract. This diagram illustrates the neuromuscular junction, the critical communication point between a motor neuron and a muscle fiber. Think of it like a wireless signal being converted into a physical action. The nerve sends the electrical signal, and the muscle fiber receives and responds to it. Understanding this stimulus response mechanism is fundamental to explaining how voluntary and involuntary muscle contractions are initiated and controlled. Now, let us talk about how muscles actually contract at the molecular level, and this is where things get really fascinating. The sliding filament theory explains that during muscle contraction, actin myofilaments slide over myosin myofilaments, causing the sarcomere to shorten. Think of it like two combs sliding into each other. The teeth interlock and the overall length gets smaller, even though neither comb itself shortens. This process depends on several key players working together. The contractile proteins are actin and myosin, the main mechanical components doing the heavy lifting. But they cannot work alone. Troponin and tropomyosin are regulatory proteins that control whether contraction happens at all. Calcium ions act as the trigger signal, essentially flipping the switch that allows myosin to bind to actin. ATP provides the energy that powers every single contraction cycle. And finally, the whole process is initiated by a signal from a neuron, which tells the muscle fiber it is time to contract. Remove any one of these components, and contraction fails. That is why this system is studied so carefully in both medicine and biomedical engineering. Understanding these mechanisms helps us develop treatments for muscular disorders and design better prosthetics and muscle assist technologies. Now let us bring together some important concepts around how muscles get their energy, what happens when that energy runs out, and how the body recovers afterward. The primary fuel for muscle contraction is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, produced mainly through aerobic respiration. But here's the catch. Muscle fibers cannot store ATP directly. Instead, they store a backup molecule called creatine phosphate. Think of ATP as the cash in your wallet. You spend it first. Creatine phosphate is like your savings account. You tap into it once the cash runs out. During moderate exercise, ATP is consumed first. Then creatine phosphate steps in to regenerate more ATP. But during extreme or prolonged exercise, once both are exhausted, the muscles switch to anaerobic respiration, producing ATP alongside lactic acid as a byproduct. Muscle tone refers to the low-level, continuous tension your muscles maintain even at rest, keeping your posture upright and your joints stable without you consciously thinking about it. Muscle fatigue occurs when ATP is being used up faster than it can be regenerated, and when lactic acid accumulates faster than it can be cleared away. At critically low ATP levels, muscles simply cannot contract anymore. Finally, oxygen debt is the amount of oxygen your body still needs after exercise to convert accumulated lactic acid back to glucose in the liver, restore oxygen levels in muscles, blood, and lungs, and replenish ATP and creatine phosphate stores. That is why your breathing rate and heart rate stay elevated even after you stop exercising. Your body is paying back that debt. And so we wrap up our study of the muscular system. You have learned how muscles are structured, how they contract through the sliding filament mechanism, and how muscle fiber types influence performance and fatigue. These concepts are foundational in biomedical engineering, prosthetics design, and rehabilitation technology. Understanding how the body moves helps you build systems that truly support human life. Keep asking questions and stay curious about the science behind every movement. Once again, this is Miss Kathy. Be blessed and be a blessing to others.